Creator, may your spirit and guidance be in us as we work for the benefit of all our people, for peace and justice in our land, and for the constant recognition of the dignity and aspirations of those whom we serve. Amen.
Minister statements. Ministers.
That's all, Minister Premier Eli. Mr. Speaker, it COVID-19 and 2020 goods on good dads goods on that's on the hood hits at that's on Northwest Territories. I used to go that not go here odds and want to think any that a husband that not guessing that it had that's on your words on that's go ahead and in hook or inside the NWT sent out that not goods on COVID-19 sent a husband at Zahn like Canada will take on Agoras. It a day goods on JWT departments. I got la, I got like deck, I get there. Yet, Taka digging it on drunk. Yeah, Leah, that's not our getting he has on say he walks in the egg lots in the at it a day NWT sent our who dear I go here, no hoots on adjustment at song has no center. Don't 811 and go get there. What's so sent the hen who go on the who get Egots on the Tada, Ascent a husband sent out Danny, the Huggy Rasent a husband ever like it there, go here sent out the Huggy or at sound. It a dear August goods on sent out Tada, go on home, war goods on sent out what's so sent the hen, the hoods in your own. A husband war sent out assistant sent a Wahoy at sound, Mr. Speaker, a year like at the protect NWT, it's a decent here like at the Kehugi Hazon Danili get out, don't hit on the Hugi on Adza. A year August, Tanya goods on sent a unit a Congo on secretariat, sent a husband sent us let's like it did at a Dani, Wogo sent a Sirak at a Don husband sent a decade, Wogo sent a Kehugi at the Honda. So Northwest Territories, I think it's not a get day again, a year sent a husband sent a let's again day. A yet I don't had has a lagons halat had at the car a husband sent at the Nilis on Kerunda. A you will send at the Nakegos sent a hot logic again the at the hot at the a yet a husband got sent a hot a day hot at a yet and COVID-19 do on a dead as it a husband has a layer got last and get lots in the yet a COVID-19 secretariat getting to Congo August sent a yet. Don't the right dates as border go on a year or sing you 15 le de don't end that in there gets on the de neck it's on NWT at in the a sent a husband sent a drunk a get home it at what they say hanera that I like that at na hooking on hot malak what hila nisi again le community government card day again a using go here like that I get sent a husband I dig as yet he get at the yet he sent a husband sent a drunk he could get done a yet public health officers are dealing the a yet he sent out good deal sent out the hoots and I yet don't has on Siralik at illy homework and the hooking on dear what I yet talked to yak that get time workers and husband saying they decent public health then yet he get on sent a year and the hooking on at the a yet had doesn't at the one deaths a good song with this in the whole let's a tone a had that on Kegon. Mr. Speaker D. Wogun sent a husband sent a then like a good on COVID-19 sent a wogun sent a sets on goods a day a good on do it go honey good decent doing on hats a days on Northwest Territories. It a day aka goods on sent a tadaha go here new woguts on sent a dear honey lead a sirak at on the hoods on get a go here on. COVID-19 sent a husband sent a deal a secretariat and getting to go on then I guess it like a hope what I get out a sent and don't I get the ads on room it a day and aha hodit it and a day has sent out 811 a year sent out had dog need the wogo sent out goods a day on a has sent out work at a hayat hit a don't as a diagata hagot the ongots on the hook rates as a house sent a honey wagani was last a don't get a don't gas and the hoods on there. Hit at sunset at the government of the territories, a using at Dongan, who get Aga has on longest or sent a husband sent out Sigali home, the night isn't a dunk out any that's in one sent a COVID 19, a using a god since it at the Tahoe weeds as a Tadaga, the using at Northwest Territories sent a husband sent at the night essay. A year goods on territory goods on sent at the question 20 a year to COVID-19 at Zagats or sent at zone a year to March now no 2020 a year goods on sent at Donga sent at Sira home get at Kehota at a house or sent at Nadikas on Yatising Dunga the hoots in almost Mr. Speaker. It a minister. It adds health and social services. It did sit the question sit you said Mr. Speaker yeah COVID-19 sit the question on China yet will sit yet he had there won't a key goods sit the yet had the honey a year sit the hoods on one of question like a hoods in a yet on the year goods sit a yet had doesn't a war sit see work a hoods as a adza there a year goods on got what they say do go hanit had that's asint an hugin on the June a year quata a year who sent 2021 gasint at the need a work isn't a don't do it good a year hanisint at the need a hoods a such so you hold ladla did in big 2021 okay yes and the husband sent out work it out the need donate had doesn't what's my leads in one need the a year who's in what so sent what doesn't la hot I don't go and isn't I don't hear what's in order and doesn't I then I got on has a ladron I get there nick any the a years in community government yeah gillian got on the need do it go the territory I got on yeah, husband got original. Yeah, got la a yes it a don't hit us a goods in la adza. I got on doing goes in the hoods in adza. What I did at zone 81%. At so husband a and WT doing a destiny to a go adza. Now, Honda I can't you got on that on doing that a year deal. Yeah. Good, a good song got sent the targets or sent a doing guaga on on that a dingy was on do the impact air Canada said a house sent a COVID-19 the and Delta variant. It this it the house sent yes in the Malaysia South Africa neck a good sent did a use it the new variant had dog got thinking a good deal what I did think I need there. It is a two region a key good sent a house sent a youth had that one you at the a bit so what hit some bike a deal not at the had all dead a good so yeah has sent out how well how good a good sent out a had a deal there. Di quad public health officer a year in I dig as one I get there yet he gets in the house and I work as in that a lot in that I get his own then yet he gets in get I go here work at a lot in the odds and I dig as on the did have got dini the house and the house and I did have nearly what you could get dini the card they get here a yes yeah, tit let's go to deal it dear house said what doesn't have done it doesn't a audience at Zahani Wogan said at the ake a year sent out Hagot and no a year isn't that had that's on okay goodness on a year who said a has on work isn't that a lot at that I don't get in the hoots on Adza. Ayit at agalagi dead doing again the federal government a goods on Canadian Red Cross again the houses a yes and goods again the adza diani tadago time wogats on sent adiwa leko takti aktak a nuvik a yeho sent a husband sent out dinze han wogats on sent a ye Canada what take on agots on art in lemi hago sent a wogon the 2021 the ni woke a then like a galats a dots a public health officer a yeho sent yet a husband said athletes as a deal there. It a Mr. Speaker, dear, then like a goods sent a COVID-19 said a husband said a de goods as a husband said as in the ads out there. A COVID-19 sakanit a get a years and kick a hot hound a dear hasn't had that a goodness on Saka COVID-19 is a call a yan getting program and you were our a isn't a Somebody able to call had a day a new vec dealed at the Hagont and it's a call.
Density.
Isn't a gihe has sent out the here a lot at down there. A good sense, let me have got targets on St. a house on Sakada November when like at targets on St. a week as it assets as a day in the condon a get the need there. A year program you're going to see a year work sent a year gihe sent on the hoods and on Adza. COVID-19 was a decent a new vegan go on a year East 3 sa kakwalan ni chakot na get the a yisit agi he na hutsin on adza. I got on the wahui di hane the tech and WT programs a di a year husin has on in the sak es di hanili ho di business on ke wukela get da got on do a yisin kik a hot hasin ya kon ye COVID-19 on kesita don't hazo set a go hugi ti di hanili go get di ni de a ye hani sit at a don he na huts in on it a di ye got so sit a hazo wallon sit a let's at a di hot e da got et a wogo da got et a go he ho on di no got on business ya go he ye sit a hazo wo kesit a era la get that I don't gi he ho wo in le
To be in effect this winter. Under the gathering order, non-essential businesses, organizations, for non-essential businesses and organizations, gatherings are limited to 25 people indoors.
Kongo yeset adon atiate he nano da sin la don hatlon get in had le konte di hanit e yo wo ons on se don go Kongo ye don son go get ade e yira set anitle de he se go get lezunt a ha konte e da di Ajouton Guyaget in the Giguzant a hundred did zinc asset at 340 hat London a unit like Gek Ada Mr. Speaker John Contraya Golasias at Zanek Public Health Yatinigi unless a yisi Yatinity unsi si digiti hunter Gorawin Dini Lena Haneko. Also etzanek ese atone nadik ezon hialai dead don ya linsi gira winti le hunte it ali di healthcare system don mo tahi ajon hunti adnia lagi dein le se ajon fadit so se lagi de aja hunte it a naidik ezon hani hi nurse ya li technicians ya li naidik ezon konguya lai des ya huti masi gets in honde e hutia done hia sagi deson gi wuda gorana holgette hunde it a ligu hi dun ya tsin li se kontrana tsa desi e de huti dini de nezia hunde it a lidi don achi Don't ek atai sak here no de we guni de achi booster shots at dihi achi we guni de nizia hote. Ayet Mr. Speaker no that's a high sia de hundi kwa wala federal government di na di guguna disi Pfizer biotech we yesi e chakana chala ho hi gi guasa ni le ho di hote e chakana sala hi ata hi ajon si gi what a hont ene tadagi hi dich asigi ko ni de ne zia hote kongo yina get de se yazon what a hlits adagi di la da hote it a shakahia sa wunte so he tsin nit le consisa kaget inseta hata na hain thon ha hun wu hotena da le wat a he ehlek ets dila ni e de hutsi dila da hontene hani duna azon wogasi what a ha hontene masi Mr. Speaker masi Mr. Speaker ek etet so do heyageti kamle guts like etet so do Mr. Speaker, the goods of government said that near lagi de said azon da nehlets as a dinner was it a he a income security it's a this said ajon a d a said asirana that's a den de tagunzi we can joint ilani hote ayet ali tonadi te zande kena desi huchigi huchiti haninde dani huchitsa dana wo hanisit adunza tsdi hatsi wo hote 2019 eketat so holin kota diakweno on se dona what show business ya gitson se ata wo hagidi hotene di te zande kese ata hutine zengi heho ongi wota edagana tage dena wo sike girawata agedi hote Mr. Speaker did zenken na this at Asia's on internet hanita si goga what ads are hunte a ye si nit like huti done it's a da donesia sound this home water a ye hanyas on huntin done git what I get the hunte a ye si at a Johnson back a here a ye si 4.75 million what there are huti hunte as si wo huti di learning day 2019 GNWT December 31st, 2001 a fiber optic hanisi wuna hot agidi hote a the inhin yatinit oh see that dones a fiber lines a disi yatin de what ads honey nit yad la hagidin le hote a year hanisi atlanin de azon etzanek eseta wetlatso a ye clinit yadlaha hudi whatever internet hanin atla deha humba chain de con hatlo de yaktikon de bechuk what he eta dilon so some back a wogasi what a da hunte a year hanisi atara rasomba hani Donne sigira wata ada hont anait ali sombaga ka would lin seta hani hial go hela dan set on nizin hont anait ali masin hont yani yatini tunke hamasi humba chagos on get sodo he masi Mr. Speaker Mr. Speaker did zek esi Humbacha nit like at he li said I won't go in le honte a echo indi won't go deco a done denzi again on a ye la ragek in le honte a tilini asset at I can I deck a see so let did a donagin zedek on le honte ayet ali doazon wogon do hele ti hote ayesi ayidani Northwestern Airlines Ginlinho ayi member of parliament si nizinle adio da haneko goods on government set a federal government ayi tinli ne kwadle ha isla ha go get dile hote haneko ayesi go hin goods on government si Transport Canada air dome standards hani hid night halle hote hani ko tin lis in the kwadla ha Canada Aviation wagana wu ithusi si isla hani night halle hote Mr. Speaker Transport Canada federal government gitla hol hote ayet alia dani zat ahanik edese ata johuti na wugala ne alaide honte hanik yiwe he tint ezont aha honte hanik ho federal government ha go dile tso go hingo tso government hi hane yikin tele lani honte hanik ho ayesi 60-meter high ko honte yesi adisi ka ko tiliba na kwa ahi eyizula ni hladiangi la honte hane ko atsongwetso somba ke hui singi ho somba hlongwetso ke hui honte se ya tina tso ka ta sa hlasera humba chago tsa ke so don e khadi unde amile ne wo ene ya tina tso gunda dile must see Mr. Speaker hombat chasi ata jon yi ti li se ata so di hote si sennek e hi ata do mo ta si e da ni gir line da si girane zile hote yi government si de ga gut so good de la ni hote gidi e ti li da ni set la hain le se hat la le hote e ti li ne ko gone de go at la ha gin win le hote yesi asi department si hutines in tu hela da huni masi Mr. Speaker Hay River South goods like a tetso don masi Mr. Speaker yesi shaka et anagi lehi et basani wo go ta de ho ta di hook eseta sakak ejeseta hane ko bas hani se wo dad la danu la hone monta chaka seta ko tak e de had di honte the Minister Education yida na ha hadi le honte Hay River DEA bus wo dangin la se ase egin la hone Mr. Speaker DEA hanisi na wo get si hote na wo get since Adani sakak eje na wo si nagin sila ne honte Mr. Speaker di hatlod de DEA nitle kwaka de gin linsi yesi shakanet le go shakanet injiaja da nitle kwat in les injiaja so hladi adla gedi hote hane ko yega na wo tsit hote di bas hani etle ale honi hodit asigo tso hoilini de ne zya hote yani na wo de la ni hote Mr. Speaker some ba wala le ho hani tani sakha ke jesi ke je ha hote le hote di na wo si a tronseta wo na ni tsi de wo tsin dani de ne zya hote bas with that lalani denezan le hoteni tlekwa de ya linsi 400,000 so bago gi ahadi lehoni Mr. Speaker bas hanihi nuve ko si hani gi ho hotenet ali edani bas ashakak lehi yazmuna nitsi deni denezan hote hanisia johuti wuguna netsi deni denezia ni baswed deni desi sakani tlekono get da lehunine ni DEA bas hanisia da hani hladi atlani denezia na hut aisi hotel masi Hay River South goes like a tetso don Nuna poguts like a tesodom. Masi Mr. Speaker. Sen Nick that tleda tisi won't got that the one Nick that Asiazon did here there ha hoodie hunted Tleha nisi what a hunte what a good kuguigo con what a nuts as they hunte Mr. Speaker, Shehani Seta Indan Nek Esi Hota de Tiada de Gedir, that did the Edzandek Esi Asiazon de Tiada Honi Guhin goods of government set a fuel subsidy a goods a gedi on September 2021 Tledaitin Lacy GNWT Ayedaitia Gedisi gets a hoily $1.94, $1.94.93. Lots of Elling Hote. This said Asila no at Smawa on a Eddie, when the Johnson Mike it's on. Ayeta Indi Hook Hoseota. A year 17 cents and the Chilean le Hote. Hane Kodi Asiazo de Tito on Sunday, Egots of the Chinese, I get Tin Hadi, Nagiza, de Thick, I get daddy, see, Esok, I get Lesia, Adade Hote. Klehani de tea with it on. Dear Hani see the TCC what I say tingy he dear da hunte. Mr. Speaker Sunnek here says on the tea hunte. Ayet ale go he at Zannek Asia the goods on government said Aja hunt is at a goods I get dear I gets in what Sunnek Asia Nuna Pussy. A yes at what you will go the care hunt that let's a care will go a home winning there. Must see the Napuk Yellowknife North goods like a test so don't. I must see Mr. Speaker. The Asi Monta said I cam lay goods on set a fiber honey will go in dain lacy will go hey at here the home. Ayet ale di hani siatazon and fiber optic dini de what let's ya goods it de hani internet hani natlaha hani fiber optic you heyanti hote diga siata the chini he kodi koni de he you in koni de let's a goods a defun gets a hani let's a goods a dani hila da hote Wo hoja da honey hanako inlet zenho honey let's go at that honey go lat in the sea hoi la honte Mr. Speaker Danny internet at it is yet a sea go what a honte in here ho high sin le honte a yes attack to yak tats on it ya atlas gedin le honte the government say like a sea soy a line da honte Ayet ali de demon da donation honey what should the honey business kela get da gidi and get equals at a mass in one ayet aye honey
And I'll have questions for the Minister of Finance, whether we can get all the parties together.
So you will send out fiber optic lines on the minister the week had down I get la there. Must see Yellowknife North hit out so great slave the care. Must see Mr. Speaker Anissa it die Interessanten der Hauses sind der Haus ist der ich it sonst it ich sind der Haus sind grad gerad zu konatl it die hat gut enil it Haus sind it houses it has ich sind territorial na die geson Haus wo gut in der und es Don't get out with us and go get there. Da got at a home. Sent out, sent out the dog on cut a house sent out, wogo sent out nursing that like it there sent out. Last long day, second home it. It wogo sent out, minister sent it hagont it a year go here on house sent out OBS account quickly a year congo using that I did guess it hagont and it a house sent a house that niaga like get dancing Nike who take a quite a year wogo sent out at a home a year who sent out a year house sent out giga like get that I get here on house sent out a year Tani gihela get that a has a giho on it decent isn't has at you get do I had you and I have got fungus on lag on things on it I did work with I da ke hund det så ke senta hazo senta do det senta ye da ye senta da ne dong ye da ne ye senta sakhala ne ge hezo ye hazo ke ho ga ada ga lagi de ga lagi da hazo senta di ye da got et a go ho ye ha got e got die had sent a hazo sent a COVID a ye yet he gets in at had the gun in Wogots on with a don the territory sent a don't get gunnets on the MS it a sent at didn't any dead at HR the wicked there that you will must see great slave must see true a it a de mo feel da e kedde.
Morning, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. This one is for the Minister of Education.
It a de ministry de hit a didn't get at mo fia good days it a must de hont e ye bet so kon it a kon ho la hont et e it sent at massi sent at sa what a hont e ye et so nit a kon go on Chief Jimmy Bruno nit a kon sent as la no dat on at sa hont e in hat coinle 1972 han you ko on da I get sent at that on that what he didn't call had dinle di ye when any a kon la it a ye ha gon e sa card det he e that ye tenit a ko it bits a conit a con ho on e ye sent out e ye nit a consent out Edzo heliko so edzo sent a bits of congots on sen la Honda sen light sin hon citat es a kanit a cons on a get there on baski quina ke need Egi sent a hwyli'n chwadat, egi sent a giden nid a congo at Mr. Speaker, egi sent a nid a hwyli'n sent a nezin hon edzo Honey called don't yet he gained the let a need a conholy, Mr. Speaker, a gate at a yet he sent the houses and a house sent out and Tlechialas and doesn't unnecessary at Clinton government gihe a yagot and a day again listen how go get it. A sent out need a congo, bits of con a sent out. It egentlig sent nit a kan get se nezah jeg got ho get hosene der jeg got da sent det yet he genau nit a kon got ha get der it hot ne sent han so has den sakhat so got sent it na ke na killer ni dona get sonic get who get one there it ni nit a consent nezinet e sent the trench region ganis has sent ni who get home business on kissing is it a sent it hasn't so high who got consent nezi on Hazon sent a would sent that's honey that's it a year good so Hazon sent ya sad so honey sent it it a sent minister the way cat down a you will it members a sent a high get frame leg Masid sent hasn't sent technology han sent greenhouse gas has well longer sent ye did hanit at such some medicine sent hots minerals han sent going to sent a workshop I get sent a fiber optic 2021 they had new goods in daily at so has sent so the eget hano yet JWT I like it gets on with this has sent the design get gets on workshops and then honey then honey hagele was and 2021 hey you sent go here get at the it decent and ha would hey yes the NWT sent the house seen EST a use and Danny, who's other the house of say I yet asn't at a go here on it work isn't like who's on its own the what I would do when Danny go here on a using art economic development how good it has a greenhouse honey has a set the hin who get on goods or set then like a goods or set a ye has a set die woguset ayit dani woguset dani hazuset dani hutsa uta hokuhani tsunke hani det Hazo United Nation Declaration donne dizon yelin tsunke huset hazo set dena ke region set atlehe lage that ho on tsunke it di set die hahodinle und need ministers and world in the ITI sit at the way care at ho on it gets any day. Must say, Mr. Speaker, that's a Nuvik Twin Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Must say, Mr. Speaker, did think Ed hit the yes and the high sound it the wagatas and the questions and a year won't go there was the high yes and it wasn't it gona dik es like it then good sit then yet helium it June 3rd, Mr. Speaker. It again nurses again listen I get that would nurses get they need I say I may go sent I go a lot that a sent a husband sent out and I dig as no co sent I mean on dago get Hazel sa cousins good idea that's on care and the heat Hazel sent out here sent a hagon ele it sent Hazel sent out nurses the guy is on care and the Hazel sent out then sent a year they hagon any that had that so need decent a nurse in one they like get around 8 nurses sent out NWT and I dig sent out 8 high sent it how you said what's so saying they get the thinking ani lene give us it May 29 2020 got since it sent so on I dig so it sent minister that was a year so a hani has an HR question the king le honda do it dina kihwa it sent inside did de decent hot nadi as on sa kabibia do elis any tia in here minister had so it he has done it has sent nurses he hot as it causes on go get the it hot so sent it will sent then like who like and who want it isn't so sent it isn't did think it will get lots of darling there what isn't the one down there it must say new Vic Twin Lake na hand did the
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
must say Mr. Speaker it the Raymond Denny wants it November 1955 doing Lane Ashline Wound August 21 2021 Raymond on the get Honda Saint La in Wound it sent Raymond sent woman what så kan det egentlig gitselig hund Denise a good some Baptist and war it sent hun zale hanuko sent a husband sent and donezin lene what zenezin le husband sent going desailing, go essailing, go sailing, ye de decent a house on St. Adongat, a yet a home a digger, it don't a day has a necessary a ladder.
Family, friends.
Egi sent a house sent a blind as only listen to her donne dear digger who's a tehani that's a zehani has on winds on there that had done with didn't a honey co inside did seniat sent a waga hunzile it a master sent out a sent a has on and one of deeds and a house sent and I dig as on say a sent a yet a good kids idea sent a massive was in fire here and this has on it as a drink home it massive not a dear at a home it decent members higher get tea it decent so go you get it a don't go you get big out a good son has sent we get hoods the AK Hombadsa. It also must say Mr. Speaker, it isn't keho kurasi day hule Transport Canada, I got 3P312 houses at a year yatin it's a it's a yati a isn't it's a isn't on the hoods only the a yet a yet the naked on it get on its nago hook at the quadle amigo the nikehoga must say.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, at the apartment, and it using the house sent like a hope what I get a lot Transport Canada. Using the house sent out a year yet here listen to inside the hooky on the 8 has sent the house sent out work isn't the using the work sent out the Kehoko inside the apartment sent a husband sent out a did a using Kehoga at a lagada like a home work a using out the ne had a year the nanny husband sent out the ne Kehoga husband is it 2015 a year quite out a using the husband sent out Northwest. It was said that not Canada national difference. It northern has on it is it a isn't a hono who such a book it a isn't in Sadia Lenny it the federal a year and I guess that's a go here on there.
Member for Tlabatcha.
But sada kegatsink at sodo must Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker. It decent decent husbands it hasn't transfers Canada isn't a husband they didn't get teach a husband sent a dance at Zanit it did husband get dead doing again.
Mr. Speaker, yes, we have changed multiple airports to meet the Aerodome standards and recommendation practices when we have to under
Okay, now we'll see it. That's like Diana, it's a honte. Humbacha goes like it has so done. Mr. Speaker, you see that some back a gadio honey, you see Humbacha see that con somebody that long seguin for 18 seguin for somebody that long it's like a honey. Mr. Speaker, a ye tinli seguin for her. A ye say Argentine leads on what tinli one more $10 million a hoodie hunt a some bahonole me a key. Honole me John Hatlan key with a hoodie a hunt a sladniagi lagos on Humbachago I get a sodom. A said, Mr. Speaker, a year now was said at Ladi Atlanet, Alinis Atlanile. Did you would add a hanya agoja hote? Must say, Mr. Speaker. I see hotly honey now, must say, Mr. Speaker. Easy now was it a nizzy. A year at 60 meters on set like what a year at a nizzy at a it's a adit iha lekakun honey that will lie a yesiajon adits on again lassie a ye hesse teen leader core ad line lacy what as some back a hoodie with a Department of Infrastructure said that Dira said that a yakho said that John a year than is again one said that John what you now would Rolling said that you would alane sits in whom would a the hook is that a ye teen lee said that home but shark and said that teen lee as a ye would get lots of that there one day. Y'all know North Coast get that so done. Emma see Mr. Speaker, see how high seen le what I did. GNWT fiber line honey northwest tile. Here lagi de what I did zanta $6 million. What's a keho work what a honey we get la da ha her DC. Ayetali di wo itle wo gada unda kada ho de. As somebody I would Lindsay that didn't show here lege dear ha honey. As don't somebody rahani well lani in somebody gets a dear ha didn't show. Must see Mr. Speaker. You got don't hats in la hunte. You gihe dear sunny le hunte. Honey could di here said the honey. At so honey wo good dick it's a journey lena honey co. A didn't show us like in darkness in our get. See what a honey don't government don't a dear honey the sea nizzy must it's in wood and then don't get us in DC. I would did I get care. Mr. Speaker, a tle John said sen neck a hit I go at ledit he hunt a said I good neck a hit at ledit he la hats in one hunt did said that Alberta so tle at in the de Chile le hunt a Sax Harbor Ulhaktuk Politaxi go at ledit he la gilla had le honey. Asina chahani hotle rakawu infrastructure. Emma see Mr. Speaker. Tlehani siajon nek esia dazon de tiaja honte jodi tezan nek enats a dates on contanet shalaya galat asi de ti honte azon Canada KGC 41 cents per liter in tle hogos on tle de tiaza honte diesel hit at 42 cents per liter so de tiaja honte ayda as on Canada KGC 50% la tlonte on nage dia jahote a department see a dongira tledi tila tleha wed sahote haniko a said guhin tleda daiti na tse se dongira indoat hote azon neke tlehet ela ni hote na masi Mr. Speaker. Nuna pogoza get that soda. Ola hat to $1.94 T Sax Harbor he $1.95 hunte. Politic $1.34 hunte. A year said 50% la tlode on that deal that's somebody that he nage DC. Ali don't edeget daha edeget zahoten haneko klesi giraditi ot edwazon he lagits oni lene MTS the G said somebody gets lelani hote GNWT ta kitla ho hote ye contract git hunse da tle contact ge le ha git ho li hote ayita yi wutz ke hani de Tihani se da kontana chalahi sombat aguts agidini de nezia hunt and it go at de tia legacy a you minister what's a hui li hunt and I must say Mr. Speaker infrastructure rak awade he must say Mr. Speaker a you department se da de tina da le dongi gana tse di hadi hote a you subsidy hani de a you program se Ayesha dajo tlena tse di go sompana tselle hani internet ke go tson se tlena edi it's on contact e jehana edi ayese contract hit alagi deni de yishi sombagi tsati honte ayeta adanyo tle de tisi aya what's somba ke hu wi honte tleke jega hota hani hunt ene a department si hani da la hota hota hani da tle dai hi ti hote he must see Mr. Speaker sia da hwa da NTS ya lisi tle hlon na ge ti hote tle dai ti tle ad net hlon zo ad di na ge di honi infrastructure rak awode he must see Mr. Speaker no deni de what's na go ta sa le adi tsa tlhena IDC we go on tla gone de must see no na pod a chinda in cap he ye tlhede thile gone na ke dini de internet ke go tso ye tlhehlo na e di hote ye se tlheha tlhona e dini de Tlhatlhona e dini de te chile honi as ye minister se as you go aha siga a di set a tlhatlhona e di honi e da e hanya jo de ke ne intle da ha go tis ha sa tini de ne point e ma se he ma se Mr. Speaker he yisi yitleda ti wada na tasani lena hani se ani de masi Hay River South goes on get so don he must see Mr. Speaker did zinc esia da si wo he 18 lesi e contractors hani donagi gule hani the federal government up Mr. Speaker federal territorial hani nawugituni said that jo donki gule hani se wonda case must see Mr. Speaker and you said that you the DC the dinwinik good so a dihunte see GNWT ferries hani federal government gitla honde done hono da na kezon eglaida ha honte di GNWT contractors yagin linsia da COVID now wo on see agin ta honte Mr. Speaker the airports on KC the territories on federal government said that the Tłı Yatıì Airport regional airport it's on Kontana Chagong it's on Kontana Chala Hani Siajo Yagalase Waganawo Goshini must say Mr. Speaker the federal Yellowknife Airport Zunga Night Hunt Ayet Aye Contasia da Dunsia da John GNWT Hanina Wugit 2021 Don Agent Federal Government check hits contractors lagi de airport lagi desi na wugi giguzut lagi de hoti hote yigan na wo federal government na wugi si hote haniko di Transport Canada Agent Airport si da Agent hunti Kontaya go lights on son lingak at de hanyaj da gogin ket la honi de hagila honte. Masi Mr. Speaker. Ella shohanit azasik je honte wuga wata hatlo de akota si Hay River North Sea. Ali assembly siota ajo ella chok dehi yiga na woseta donagi guledin de egalagi de alagidit alias go hidia da hotamasi infrastructure like I would de amasi Mr. Speaker or seats a DC Transport Canada na wigi tonsi donagi guzon egalai de hagadi PSACSUY and Gil a year union Thailand ni hani ta dona lai de ha hutiunte ayet ali indani de don indan nek esi hota ay giguni de zon tat ay get de hi hunte ay na wuse gweli hunte don 90% la tlon ajon gigu hunte etzan nek esi hota Hani good tag again the honey the giguzut a hakwante 2021 hook is at 90% at a nakens and gigu night town and a honey how would you want a Masi Mr. Speaker Achinta in care Hay River South goods like a so don Masi Mr. Speaker Diachi da ekea de pon dona di tenta na desi gigu lisi in hua gongi guni de ne ziahuti hunde e yigasi da don de din de ra ahuti hunde e nizi huti nizi gihe oada da ekea si da miss minister si da dona gigu leni de shipyard galagi des gigule de edani hahuni
responsible for
Minister yesterday who said Mr. Speaker isn't the federal government need to get lata isn't the do equalising to looking at Giwaha only it they COVID 19 sent what sent hasn't sent what sent other negotiate whole wasn't a has it sent the has sent the Gokuni de Zult sent at a sent has sent out a sent has sent out a has sent Goni de what at Hadda sent go hui Jilan you must say that it's a care great slave that a care. Must say, Mr. Speaker, you sent DHR sent a ye with the way cat, sent husband sent husband, a ye sent a ye government again listen the get that on it the did. Must say, Mr. Speaker, a sent husband sent يسنت أنا كهوني ده وكهات خاطر يوهو أطلع إن له 2018 إذا دي COVID-19 صار يسنت وهو أهد تاني أي هذا سنت أصلا إن له إن سن إذا دي سنت دي وونس يحتاج تسكه هو أن تاني هو وين له يهتل سنت isn't words at Danny Dennis out it decent husband that's a la a husband a years on Northwest Territories husband a yet at the wogan the side cane led a yet they get sent a husband it a husband it's our get then a girl that's a dad the haunt that day it out. Great Steve Gatesso Dunda Eke. Masi Mr. Agisenda, the husband senta, Agisenda, Yukalada, Senta, husband senta, minister senta, husband, Danye, Ayena Dickeson senta, the husband, the God, Ayete. Dundaka in Agalagi descendaka in its on a yogo senta de Agalagi descenda. It has said and just a kig question guessing only then sound that did and some bar minister, Mr. Speaker. It decent husband said I'm missing that hot named so hot isn't that it went doesn't isn't that decent husband said I think as on that phone go you get where it isn't that they decent it deal question that Huegos Huegos Hagot 18th and net on against son in aegis and days and government and aegis and Mr. Miss Quincy what he down there. It aegis and assistant husbands and aegis and glad songs decent deal at luck egg bragas and the husbands and the Hagot any lens on aegis and don't luck ed get their husbands and nurses again listen to the Kewana, not that's it. Only Lena has not a yes in the Aurora College loan against any didn't a con against a good get there at the home. Honeyco, what Hegots on St. Mr. Speaker, you sent that night like the Nakala, the work a hagon it a day, sent a high day, high than the Ongos of Galats at Dassing has a da human resource a year get last and I has a yes and I get that I yes and get where I that's a end and the like get that. Aye, what doesn't a lower at the Hadilla house on the net idea, yes, on God sent a yes, it idea has no cake at I shall gallets at that go here on that. Must say, Mr. Speaker. It the great slave, the egg cake at Hassel the master, it must say that it isn't a husband, a isn't a isn't on the a isn't a husband, then you get out of the apartment, sent a husband, sent I eat some, but I that a isn't a COVID, so on that than a eat some, but I got to get the agas and the house, I got there on you. Must great slave, it minister, it Tsompaga minister, it must say Mr. It asset last one it Mr. Speaker.
Various forms of this question have
Decent hazel has let's at that has a G has not a isn't some listen to let's at that a isn't a collective agreement that's it in its own a year than you go to I it's a D has sent union hand using get goes on its own it that's it like in its own hand needs who hasn't what I want to go has sent than on sent than you can hope we get here it then I guess it on the trinkets as I do and it some person that get go alle han ko e ho sin wala go ane so et da go et da ho has so that some part that ni e wo ga sin get so has di ho that has so that go it has so sin e ye da na ke go so sin da ne hey ya la get da la get this and I get hin is it I get so ya ya so ho it dani te on go so ke ho sa aga da ko he ho on de it wo go Dino did that in cat slave, great slave. It a isn't a isn't I don't like eggs or sent us it's some buses on night. It decent a husband sent dear COVID sent I got here on its own. It a great slave, it a somebats kero. Mr. Speaker, it a somebats and our fellow government set up. It a yes and go here, a haga, a hazon, sit a hazon, a yes and a was it a hazon, set out dagon at a home. That a yes and a yes and Ida hazon nai na tseti da tseli ida ei hosida hazon sida ida hatsati hunt ene ida da tseli da go he ho onets on ei sida da ei hazon wa tseta ne on di ei sida di na tseti sida wo go di go sida hatsati hunt ida da it's like frame leg.
Monsieur le Président, my questions are for the Minister of Industry, Tourism.
It in ITI that it critical mineral workshop I get using the husband saying which is that ITI sent that a using the wogan sent that like that I get you on some care with other it industry tourism and Minister Master Speaker using that it di wogas and the highest I had in Elena Indi Lahuda on a yes and our subtle or Zaka Hazon say well ha ada ho ada it's a in Lehuda then I get to the net son it decent Hazon said Wogon sent our legs are dogs away child and is not a yet teasing is in Wogon who has sent a hope wog a year that got a hago asked a hazon. It decent innocent yet cheese winless and I got honey yet cheese and I go on the galas down I must say.
Member for Frame Lake.
Frame leg you the a message so Mr.
My next question, which though
A isn't workshop. It a year report was I seen then a honey call a year sent a husband sent out a year husband sent out. The Dinky as a minister sent out husband sent out the Northwest Territories husband sent out action plan go sent out then we'll get that there.
Minister responsible for ITI.
ITI must say what isn't that because and a isn't that isn't that works and it isn't that a isn't that does has a dear down the houses a year it's like went in Canada, Alberta, North Clinton government that on so University of Alberta it goes on as soon as that houses yet here it's a lad down there it decent that got isn't that little instant houses work in a who are on its own. It decent minerals, honey, yeah, going to get like that. It has yet it work get like a who get other who get on its own Northwest Territories.
For Frame Lake.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. I want to thank the
I'm like must say hayan ya got since it then I get who get it dear will send our husband sent out a using technology and is something like a hope dear hagon at a hagon a ha it's in the then I get good to set a workshops at a husband sent out a year mine is on guessing it at a go here. The minister sent a high sent a dear doesn't go away again listen that the hooking on a year dear will climate on go here on a year ITI Minister must say, Mr. Speaker, the government Northwest Territories, and I using a climate on Kyoto, who lost on the honey, co, using the work, isn't that Santiago de Hanis, I using us, Sahiala, a good department has how I going to listen to that. Isn't I play who get out of like get down as a you sit a house, sit a wall. Get a hope with a good on its or the hasn't sent our Northwest Territories, give us as in its own. They're going at a yes, let's as a dear have got at a own a how wait it and it's on the work sent out the climate changes. I didn't know the house I got isn't atla niaga dat it de technology and is asin ya question work at ke hok what go hisin how we hunt amase ministry dino de da ke that he Mr. Decent a da ni ke hok what I work again da has sent out da ni go here da gon at den ke goods on
Can the minister tell us whether
a minister sent out and has sent out critical minerals. Hay needs on chaos like we get doing the what ongles on that one at those I get the ITR minister. And Mr. Speaker, you sent a house on sent out the questions, sent out workshops, sent out house on doing a head. It's a line there. You sent out the work with a honey action plans. A decent girls are Jenny Lennis on the house on sent out doing this sent out and they get great doing again. Listen, I get some at Denny. They gets a kid. I go here and it's all it has it in your goods on sent out some has sent out house on that near work at that. Get hook with the last at the yes, sent out house on sent out. Fiber sector honey sent last a hot in this the house on sent hot last a week isn't like a hope win legend and it a day no de that day mo figure that eke Mr. Speaker.
I want to recognize that.
It isn't a like that a hot a Jimmy Bruno need a conk a whole quotes on Kyoto say isn't it goods on high clinch it dagon it you working click it whole quote get out need a conk our William minister mess it a sunny in the week isn't that a lot that had in Lena it must say thank you Mr. Speaker.
The development of the community.
Yes, you see what I want. I hope what I has sent that you see that on the honey gihe. It I need a congots or sent yes a car. Gayati genau what you sent out you see count hug at the haniak at the a beto community government go here a lot that delay. It need a minister. Mr. Speaker, it isn't not a hagunt et and it hasn't it isn't a nick it isn't it the hasn't like a whole the has done it isn't a whole what a hagunt at a click a hot art in any with a demo figure. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker. It has sent out don a Central region sent out NWT sent out it then like it goes how it gets it has no trade skills yeah go see honey the decades a dia had any lene it has I seen he sent out it I sent out calculating out online it goes on kissing lilani I sent minister sent has saying it has sent has some program I got one a year work sent education employment okay
Member for Mumfway, Minister responsible for EC&E.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I agree.
See, Mr. Speaker, sagai kwadi hunte dona like hua wat hun na wo see what a hunte gun ne ke a jun hunte hani dun like kwe hat in wonte e yeda e yani trades program see saga what a hunte hani dune high school students hani ho see like hua get 20 days in wonet ali e yi hani se dan dani dune like hua wat hun see wo gat da hunte Ada hani si wika lata hadi le honte hani program and services da donuts at di hi wika latsa da honte ne ada eye hani si ajonhuti ami se hani ke ladda se ta wogo gitsa tsedi ha dile hontene mase no that's on that in care movie goes on get so don I think a minister said I go contact on don't watch your business ya gets on it's only like concept that don't like a who at that who nisi high school honey they say that don't good don't like a who at who honey good at daddy le honey need like work I would there a ye ECE with a honey he we get lots of that with a honey programs we get lots of day with a done he like a who are with honey students honey check han the qualanit like honagit a honey check that like a who I get on saying what I'll give an that's a day with a did the I give one see lot out ink like a daggy one see what I get at a dear how what's at the must say Mr. Speaker I must say I would that get here. Hey River South goes on get so done. Had what day goes on so. Hey MSC Mr. Speaker. Neat like hook I would daily say that we had for Mr. Speaker had lot daisy had a di hura shaka neat like hot at era basket what there. Haneko inda achi lladia ditch aseda asi higihu ichi hats in wallet hunte Mr. Speaker asi 400,000 nit like waka de gili si hatlon giunjes hatlon so bagiunja di le hunt any hut hante what bas shaka kedleha here south kusaketeso domasi he Mr. Speaker the asi hota click a gas hota one goods in the hotel a honey bus and check hike a geras hota a year honey hota one goods in the hotel a yet in le mission hota had a good need in le honey could diras hota somba argent hunt in night hatla yaza somba de hola adlanet ali e yira seta de din hut hunt e somba da tlota lagi de seta gits a hoili hote eke somba gesla haddi hote hane ko di sing nitle kwaka wo elin seta monta nitle kwaka de gin lin se de din somba da ne gesla e ye haniga somba ke di ha gi hoitia hote ha gesia hote ya ni se somba wo ka di gesia hote di hani na wo se wongo tsede seta india wo atlan wa go tso wo guna ne tsi de da hani wongo tsede in le hote 18, 19, 2019 Eira seta chekha hane basta egilera azo ezanek e somba hiya zade hola adla honte alidi somba de on ailani de wo hoidi honte hutant elani basra de on somba hola honte hane ko di hutant what ala tsada somba un gut tsede la honi de zon hat honte hola at e wicket jon honte September, October, November. Adla tlole maison de on islanding de basaka ke jehasi rawala I hunte masi Mr. Speaker. And hatlo de gods on sajin on kerak awode le ekatet sodon sunnit le kwak adegin linsi asi Ezanek esi chakak e jehasiata si hotlaura what's at sa hote would doubtle cha Hanako asi didi what's a department si student busing fees would then agila hadi lehoni hani da shakata nage di atleha hu would lehon tenetali na wusi would de atleha di lehoni Nitle kwa kawude masi Mr. Speaker asya zola da ke wala da wonga tsada dile kwache. Asit ala se hladi atle ha wonga tsada ni de nitle kwa ka de hani na wusi ki he go tsadwa dile hote si wacho na wala dia wala na ho da halla oni lene I nitle kwa ka de ginlin kontado na de se da zan ki he go tsadu zunt aha hote. Ayeda di hani Aye, honey, see, I just went you were gonna need it there, what I must say, Mr. Speaker. Would the AK? Mr. Speaker, must see. The had lot de said as in Shaka, bast like a jera said I won't get a day left what I had lot de it like work at Daisy. I give le will le ho now will get seen le what I Hani policies what shani wagala get the honey now we see get see what Mr. Speaker Minister so that not neatly not that's a holina ko DEA honey honey searching how good ditch as yata Lladiad ladi le hwni isi Iraq a wedi isi adajo isi adajo education aki da ni dige tlesi waga ayi ke la tsada hain lesi hatsalla hasi watsa hote assembly said that John Nazi de Krihi had a chaka honey bas won't go get there honey. We can that a little good years on what last a honey were right dying le what actually in Danny de hachi goods a good ditch as it as a clear wets out there. Neat like work I would lean said that neat like Cora got the gilly say chairman what's a good day what a year honey say in Danny de said that busing services gracias a we he go to that at the his good in la hotel masi at lo de goes like a so do masi Mr. Speaker the government he dani lehe synagogues illi hani na wusi we a good day aja hotel ayet ali yinit le kwa de hatlo de glinsi hatlo de Don't say that don't something unit like quack at the kege hadi honey gira ho only lani hote yet humpa chaho nit like quack at they say don't something that change le ho on hote yet di a ye honey said that zone Mr. Speaker I say dear nihi First Nations ki again did a diani now was it a do hego get do ha di le honini a con hatlo de a con contrago so humba chada ni alagi de ya jon at a dagalani hani do hele dia sani le honi he must see Mr. Speaker nit le con zon Education Act waga alati de hote a section 86 hani na wo hlati a tsallaha hiya jmo ga tsadda ha dile hote da di hatlo de seta donesin la no kiye din zinegi oni de yani na wo si hlati a tsallaha dile hote John here that zone that's it a quick here that hanini klesi jun gelle hadi le honi eta di nit le kwaka de gin linsi de din si da si wugun he 18 le hote ka wode da geke hon ba cha go zan get so don Merci, Mr. Speaker. Tłı chȯ Yatıì Minister Infrastructure. Humbachada niguts alagin da siada asiyike heya tia dilehone tsatak and now what's okay. Masi, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, we dongin zihi Johnson da wala lehonte haniko kontasi yunga DC junelia dilehonte intazatane humbachago zoket so do masi, Mr. Speaker. Ihe Lincoln gitson atinli kese kakonda wallahi yazon latniat lagiti hote haniko guhin gotsoni tleko gotsot kese that and the gigalata honi infrastructure rock I would
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't know that in front of me right now. If I were perhaps given a heads up, I could prepare something. I can commit to the member when I give her the names to provide that information as well. Thank you.
Sir, oral questions. Member for Thabacha. For Framley.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. My questions for the Minister of Environment and Natural Resources. I want to follow up on some important facets for the proposed regional study for the Slave Geological Province. In June of this year, his department carried out extensive aerial surveys of caribou herds, including the Bathurst herd, and of course those surveys were delayed by a year. Can the Minister describe results of those surveys, and more specifically the results for the Bathurst herd? Merci, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Member for Frame Lake. Minister responsible for ENR.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member for the question. This summer, UNR completed surveys to obtain updated population estimates for the 5 barren ground caribou herds, the Tux Peninsula herd, Cape Bathurst herd, the Blue Nose East herd, and the Blue Nose West herd, and the Bathurst herd. Calving ground photos surveys were successfully completed in June for the Bathurst and the Blue Nose East herd, and a composition survey was done in October. The 2021 estimates for these two herds will be released shortly to all co-management partners and committee. In December, we are planning to meet with the Bathurst Caribou Advisory Committee and all interests as Indigenous governments and organizations to discuss the new establishments and moving forward. So, Mr. Speaker, unfortunately I can't share it. We need to follow our process, and the process is work with our Indigenous partners first, then end committee, then make it public. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Oral questions. Member for Frame Lake.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. I don't fault the Minister in wanting to follow due process, but of course the Bathurst caribou herd is at a critically low point, but our government continues to steamroll ahead with plans for an all-weather road that would inevitably cause irreversible harm to the Bathurst herd. So can the Minister tell us whether our government is prepared to stop or pause the work on the Slave Geological Corridor until a regional study is completed? Merci, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Member for Frame Lake. Minister responsible for ENR.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yesterday I explained in this House the GNWT can try to influence decisions. Regional studies unfortunately fall under the federal government's authority under the MVRMA, I believe that's what it is. Too many acronyms some days. The GNWT has not developed a position on the regional study. Cabinet will seek input from regular members on potential positions once input has been received from Indigenous governments. So we're more than willing to work together collaboratively with our Indigenous partners to come up with a position. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Oral questions. Member for Frame Lake.
Monsieur le Président, I want to thank the Minister for that. I'll try to give him a real gift here. All he has to say is yes. With regard, though, to the Slave Geological Province regional study, participant funding is going to be a central issue. And in the last assembly, my friend, the Honourable R.C. McLeod, said on March 2nd, 2016, we recognize the value of having our NWT residents participate in a lot of these processes. And I will commit to the member that I will continue to raise these issues with our federal counterparts. So my question to this minister is, does this government actually support the concept of participant funding, and is it prepared to push for participant funding as part of a regional study? Merci, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Frame Lake, Minister responsible for ENR.
I can tell you that the GNWT is talking to our Indigenous governments, the Nunavut government and the federal government in order to understand relevant views and interests about the GNWT's or the government's request and Quechua government's request. Any GNWT position will take into account the views of all parties and stakeholders, including MLAs. The GNWT has encouraged the federal government to consider federal funding opportunities, recognizing there should be a regional study move forward and significant federal finance support would be required, including participants funding. And you heard me yesterday, this here should be the federal government's responsibility because they are responsible for this very act. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Final supplementary, member for Frame Lake.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. I want to thank the Minister for that. I guess I'll take it one step back. Does this government actually support the concept of participant funding in general for environmental assessment? And I'm hoping the Minister is actually going to say yes. Thanks, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, member for Frame Lake, Minister responsible for Environment and Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the only person that can speak for the government of the Northwest Territories is the Premier. What I can say, though, from ENR's perspective, yes, we want to work with our Indigenous governments. We need their input to move forward. It's very much about engaging in consultation with our Indigenous governments. So if he wants a government overall approach, he needs to ask that question to the Premier. But from ENR's perspective, we think participants need to work together. We need to get funding to work forward to address our issues. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Oral questions. Oral questions. Member for Yellowknife North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My questions are for the Minister of Health and Social Services. I appreciate her informing this House previously that we have a 26.3% vacancy rate in nursing positions, and this is a 10% increase since 2020. However, I was hoping the Minister could help me quantify what that means at Stanton specifically, where the OBS unit has closed. Can the Minister tell us currently how many positions are funded at Stanton Territorial Hospital and how many of them are not actually filled? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, member for Yellowknife North. Minister responsible for Health and Social Services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the question. The staff component at Stanton Territorial Hospital is 466, and the vacancy rate was 13.1% as of June the 30th. And there are 61 positions that were actively being recruited for as of June the 30th. Those are the most recent statistics I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Oral questions. Member for Yellowknife North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know there is a lot of efforts being done to make sure we fill those 61 positions, and I know that it's costly not to fill them. And I was hoping the Minister could inform us, with this latest closure of obstetrics, what is the estimated cost of sending all those patients to Edmonton to give birth as opposed to if they were able to here in Yellowknife? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, member for Yellowknife North. Minister responsible for Health and Social Services.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have an answer for the member, but I want to say at the beginning that any recruiting efforts we are successful with right now will likely take a few weeks to implement, especially if the person needs to relocate to Yellowknife from another place. To the cost of sending the patients to Edmonton, it's our estimate that it will be approximately $12,500 for the patient and her escort. to go to Edmonton and stay there for 28 days or 4 weeks. This cost includes flights, accommodation, transportation, and meals for the traveler and her escort. And those services may be augmented by the pregnant person's own employee benefit plans, if the person has those available to them, by the NIHB or by other employer benefits, depending on who they work for. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Oral questions. Member for Yellowknife North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just doing some on-the-fly math, I believe there was 90 Yellowknife residents. I know there were some Nunavut residents who were also affected, but 90 times 12,500 is $1,125,000. Can I just get a clarification on that 12,500 statistic? Is that the cost of all the medical travel and the accommodations? And does it include, I believe if we send someone to birth in Edmonton, Alberta Health Services is going to bill us back for those services. Does it include that number? And if not, what would that be? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Member for Yellowknife North. Minister responsible for Health and Social Services.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I don't believe that this number includes the cost of service from Alberta Health Services. This is the medical travel cost. But I can find out what the billing would be, or at least a range. You know, some deliveries are very straightforward and others aren't, as we all know. And so that may also impact the amount of money that is spent with Alberta Health Services for their support. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Oral questions. Member for Yellowknife North.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would appreciate the Minister following up with what we expect Alberta to bill us back. I know that they bill us back millions of dollars a year, and I expect that births, even one complicated birth, can get very expensive very quickly. And I guess my point here is that this closure is becoming a $1 million cost to us. I think that's quite clear. We're in that range. And I know it's been reported that the OBS nurses for years have been asking for an additional staff person, and there's some debate about whether that is needed. But I think this has proven that one closure is easily more than the cost of funding that staff position. So my question for the Minister is there a political win here where we can fund an additional OBS nurse and hope that this closure never happens again? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Member for Yellowknife North. Minister responsible for Health and Social Services.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to say I hope this is a one-off, that I never have to stand here and talk about the obstetrics unit being closed again. In terms of adding an additional staff, I don't know where those discussions are at within the hospital. I do know that the number of births at Stanton has been declining over the last 3 or 4 years. I also know that they have a large number of vacancies at this point, so I'm not sure that adding another position is actually going to bring them another body, because we are in the midst of recruiting for those vacancies. So I think that this is a conversation that we need to have. Maybe the value of the fourth position over the long term is that people are more able to take their time off. So it's certainly something I'm interested in. Thank you.
Minister, oral questions. Oral questions. Member for Kamloops.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Understandably, members from this side of the House have been holding the Department of Health and Social Services to task this week in this House, but I just wanted to start off with a thank you. Today, during question period, my 2 youngest children were vaccinated against COVID-19, and I'm incredibly grateful to the Department of Health and Social Services for that. One of my jokesters asked me if this was his Christmas present, and it's probably not his, but it was definitely mine, so thank you very much for that. Mr. Speaker, my questions today are for the Minister of Health and Social Services. It is my understanding that staff surveys are done through the accreditation process for hospitals. What were the outcomes of the 2019 hospital or Stanton accreditation surveys in Yellowknife while they were going through that process? Thank you.
Thank you, Member for Kamloops. Minister responsible for Health and Social Services.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm just going to say at the outset There are quite a large number of surveys that involve the nursing staff. There are these accreditation surveys my colleague just mentioned. I have also mentioned the exit surveys for people who have resigned this year as healthcare professionals, nurses in particular, and that the Nurses Professional Association is doing a survey as well about issues that are leading to people's job dissatisfaction. So to narrow this down to the accreditation survey, there were two of them conducted in connection with the accreditation. One is the Canadian Patient Safety Culture Survey, and the other is the Work-Life Pulse Safety Survey, pardon me. So for the Canadian Patient Safety Survey, the results show that the NTH SSA reported higher than the Canadian average in 3 of 8 survey dimensions, and 3 dimensions scored within 5% of the Canadian average under the dimensions that the NTH SSA scored lower than the Canadian average. So this is not easy to understand as I read it out here, but what I think it says is that the Canadian Patient Safety Culture Survey gave us a reasonable rating, where we were either above or on par in most areas. The Work-Life Pulse Survey reported higher than Canadian average results in 4 of 7 survey dimensions. Having said that, the lowest score compared to Canadian averages was received for the health and safety of the work environment. So clearly there was a flag in that survey that work needed to be done in that area. Thank you.
Sir, oral questions. Member for Kamloops.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate that information. I think that there are, a lot of discussions of surveys and collecting information. And so my next question for the minister is, what were the outcomes that relate to staff morale and staffing issues at Stanton that came out of the surveys? And were there any changes from the previous surveys or the exit interviews that were done that were able to be implemented at Stanton? Thank you.
Thank you, Member for Kamloops. Minister responsible for Health and Social Services.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's my understanding that they took the information and made a communications plan to address the areas of weakness that were identified. As a result of that, they have bi-weekly all-staff updates. They have improved the use of internal communication platforms. They have promoted the use of internal feedback tools to receive questions and information from staff. I know there's a sort of a suggestion box function now that people can use anonymously to point out issues and concerns. And it's my understanding that, in fact, these tools are heavily used, and that's been particularly the case during the COVID pandemic period. Thank you.
Minister, oral questions. Oral questions. Member for Kamloops.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the Minister for that. It's my understanding that some of the issues that we're hearing about are definitely persistent issues in a lot of our high-stress, shift work type environments within the GNWT. And so I guess I'm wondering what information is management within Stanton expecting to hear from the current nursing survey that is different from the one that they've previously heard, and how is this time going to be different? Thank you.
Thank you, Member for Kamloops. Minister responsible for Health and Social Services.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I don't have any information about the results of the surveys now underway, but I will say that they are being conducted almost 3 years later than the surveys I spoke about at the beginning of my answers. And so I think the operating environment has changed because of COVID, and that the results will be different. I'm looking forward to seeing the results of these exit surveys, and we understand that there are ways that we can improve the work life of nurses at Stanton and on the obstetrics unit. We're hearing a lot about at the moment, and somebody has already said this today, and I've said it here as well. It is preferable to retain a nurse than recruit a nurse. It works better for all of us if we have someone who's already here, enjoys working in the north, has a family and life established here, to stay here, rather than feel that the working conditions are such that the preference is to move on, particularly because of the working conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Final supplementary, member for Cam Lake.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm given this Assembly's interest in not only recruiting, but also, as the Minister states, retaining our healthcare workers in the Northwest Territories. I'm wondering if the Minister is willing to commit to sharing the results of that survey and also the responses from the Department of Health and Social Services to address them with his House. Thank you.
Thank you, member for Cam Lake. Minister responsible for Health and Social Services.
Yeah, thank you. I understand that there's a health system human resources plan that's being finalized, and my colleague, the Minister responsible for human resources, has spoken about this. And the results of the surveys that I've spoken of will inform actions to improve the recruitment and retention of healthcare staff. I will, in fact, share with the Standing Committee on Social Development the plan when it's complete and the summaries of the surveys when they're available. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Colleagues, our time for oral questions has expired. Written questions, returns to written questions, replies to Commissioner's address, replies to the Commissioner's address, petitions, reports of committees on the review of bills, reports of standing and special committees, tabling of documents, Minister responsible for Health and Social Services.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to table the following document: plain language summary for Bill 40, an act to amend the Medical Profession Act. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Tabling of documents, Minister responsible for Environment and Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to table the following three documents: in Evaluate Water Board Annual Report, April 1, 2020 to March 31st, 2021, the Natural Resources Conservation Trust Fund financial statement for the year ending March 31st, 2021, and NWT 911 Annual Report 2020-2021. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Tabling of documents, Minister responsible for Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to table the following two documents: Legal Aid Commission of the Northwest Territories Annual Report 2020-2021 and Annual Report of the Activities of the Rental Officer, April 1, 2020 to March 31, 2021. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Tabling of documents. Notices of motion. Motions. Member for Nanakput.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move, second by the Honourable Member Thabacha, that Committee Report 17-19 brackets 2, Standing Committee on Government Operations, report the review of bills of Bill 23, an act to amend the Public Utilities Act. Committee Report 18-19 brackets 2, Standing Committee on Economic Development and Environment, report the review of Bill 24, an act to amend the Revolving Funds Act. Committee Report 19 brackets 2, Standing Committee on Economic Development and Environment report on review of Bill 29, Resource Royalty Information Disclosure Statute Amendment Act, be received by the Assembly and moved into the Committee of the Whole for your consideration. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Member for Nanakput. Motion is in order to the motion. Question has been called. All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion is carried. These reports will be moved into Committee of the Whole for consideration. Motions. Notices of motion for the first reading of bills. First reading of bills. Second reading of bills. Minister responsible for Health and Social Services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move, seconded by the Honourable Member for Range Lake, that Bill 40, an Act to amend the Medical Profession Act, be read for the second time. This bill amends the Medical Profession Act to allow a medical practitioner regulated in another province or territory to provide virtual care to patients in the Northwest Territories from a location outside the Northwest Territories. This may happen in the following ways. An out-of-territory practitioner may apply for registration in the Virtual Care Register and be issued a virtual care permit. An out-of-territory practitioner may practice under a limited exception where they have received a referral from the NWT. An out-of-territory practitioner may practice under an agreement between the minister and either the government or the regulatory of their home jurisdiction. The bill makes the associated necessary changes to the Act to facilitate these new methods of practice. The bill also adds a regulation-making authority to authorize the establishment or adoption of standards, practice, code of ethics, continuing competency programs, and scope of practice frameworks and guidelines. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Motion is in order to the principle of the bill. Member for Yellowknife North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe this is a number of things the department is doing to provide further virtual care to our residents. I just want to thank the minister for bringing this forward. During COVID, we made many steps in this direction, and now there seems to be a bit of a catch-up to change some of the regulations, adopt the software, and really be a leader in this area. So I will gladly support this bill at second reading.
Thank you, Member for Yellowknife North. To the principle of the bill. Question has been called. All those in favour? All those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion is carried. Bill 40 has had second reading and is referred to a committee. Colleagues, before I put you in the Committee of the Whole, I'd like to wish the member for Thabatcha a happy birthday for tomorrow and invite you all to join me in the Great Hall for a small celebration. Happy birthday. Consideration in Committee of the Whole of Bills and Other Matters. Bill 23, 24, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, and 36. Table document 437-19 brackets 2. Table document 438-19 brackets 2. Table document 439-19 brackets 2. Table document 466-19 brackets 2. With member for Nivik-Twin Lakes signature.
I now call Committee of the Whole to order. What is the wish of committee? Member for Frame Lake.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Committee wishes to consider table document 437-19 brackets 2, capital estimates 2022-2023, and we'd like to consider the Department of Health and Social Services and Municipal and Community Affairs. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Does committee agree? Thank you, committee. We will take a short break and then we'll resume with the first item. Thank you. I'll call Committee of the Whole back to order. Committee, we've agreed to consider table document 437-19-2, capital estimates 2022-2023. Committee, we will now consider the Department of Health and Social Services. Does the Minister of Health and Social Services wish to bring witnesses into the chamber?
Yes, please.
Sergeant at Arms, please escort the witnesses into the chamber. Would the minister please introduce her witnesses?
Yep. On my left is Derek Elkin, the Assistant Deputy Minister for Corporate Services. And on my right is Perry Heath, the Director of Infrastructure and Planning.
Thank you. Welcome. The committee has agreed to forego general comments. Has the committee agreed to proceed to the detail contained in the document? Committee, the Department of Health and Social Services begins on page 33. We'll defer the departmental totals and review the estimates by activity summary, beginning on page 34 with administrative and support services, information items on page 35. Questions? Member for Yellowknife North.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm looking at about $3.5 million of various medical software. I really have no concern with what's presented here. My question is, it was my understanding that we were looking to replace our electronic medical record system, and I believe that was quite a costly endeavor, and I don't see that here. Can the minister just give an update as to what is going on with that process? Thank you.
Thank you, Member. Minister of Health and Social Services.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. The member is correct. The current electronic medical record system has an end date, and it is necessary to replace it. And I believe that Mr. Elkin has been participating in that process and could give you an update.
Thank you. Mr. Elkin.
Thank you. Yeah, so we've been given those by TELUS, who is the current provider of the EMR, that it will be sunset at the end of 2023. So we are currently doing the planning phase to what that would look like. They also indicated that they would support it beyond 2023, so we have a little extra time to plan on it. It's an opportunity to actually look at our current EMR and our other systems to maybe there's an opportunity to see what else we can roll into another solution. So we have a project team underway that's currently looking at it. Thanks.
Thank you. Member for Yellowknife North.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm glad. I know there's a couple different systems operating and they don't always speak to each other the best, so I think this is a good opportunity, although probably a very, very expensive one, to look at all of our systems. As part of that project team looking at this, is it on their agenda, a patient online portal? I think this is, COVID has really pushed this to the forefront. And in many jurisdictions, you can log in and you can just see all of your vaccination statuses. You can see outstanding lab tests. And if we had something like that during COVID, it probably would have saved us a lot of headache in creating the vaccine passports and that data entry. Do we expect, or is it one of the priorities of buying a new EMR system that would be a function? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Minister of Health and Social Services.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, indeed, it is a priority of a new system. It's not possible with our current system, and so it would be a great upgrade to be able to offer people direct access to their own records.
Thank you. Member for Yellowknife North.
I'm gonna sneak in one more that may be pushing the limits here. I know we have a number of software operating, but we still tend to fax records. This has caused a lot of problems. Are we going to end faxing? Do we anticipate any of the software we're buying or planning to buy will end that practice? Thank you.
Thank you, Member Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Personally, I would like to recycle every fax machine in the NWT. But that may not be what the department has in mind, so I'll look again to Mr. Elkin to ask him about that.
Thank you, Mr. Elkin.
Thank you. Yeah, so we're currently over the last year doing a inventory of where all faxes are used, because our ultimate goal is, yes, to move away from faxes, but however, it's a matter of understanding how faxes are used and where we interact, particularly with the private sector, to make sure that we don't disrupt the patient care in doing that. So yeah, we are doing an inventory to understand how and when they're used and how a transition plan to move away from faxes.
Thank you, Mr. Elkin. Are there any further comments under the Administrative and Supportive Service section? Member for Hay River South.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just looking at the Medifarm replacement, and I guess I don't know too much about that, so I'd just like an explanation of exactly what that is, and does that tie into, say, pharmacies as well, private organizations like that? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Member. Minister of Health and Social Services.
Yeah, thank you. I'd again like to direct this question to Mr. Elkin.
Thank you, Mr. Elkin.
Thank you. So Medifarm is the in-hospital pharmacy system was used in Stanton, Hay River, and Inuvik. It was aged out and no longer supported. So when Stanton came on, we moved to a new system called BDM. And then the eventual plan was to move Hay River and Inuvik on as well. So Stanton's been completed, Inuvik's been completed last July, and Hay River is scheduled for next year. And that's really within the hospital itself. Actually, to answer your question, I don't know if it connects with the private pharmacies, but it's really around pharmacy management and distribution within the hospital and inventory control to better make use of the staff time and for be more efficient of mapping pharmaceutical use in the hospital.
Thank you. Member for Hay River South.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So if somebody in Stanton wants information from Hay River or Inuvik, they can pick up that information. That information in those other two communities would be available to them. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Member Minister.
Thank you. Please address the question to Mr. Elkin.
Mr. Elkin.
At this point, I don't know what the interoperability be between the three sites. I assume since they're on the same system, that's one of the ultimate goals, but right now they won't be communicating at this point, but I think that's the ultimate goal, to be on the same system, but we'd have to confirm that.
Thank you, Mr. Elkin. Member for Hay River South.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, that's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Are there any further questions on administrative and support services? Seeing none. Health and Social Services, Administrative and Support Services, Infrastructure Investment, $3,641,000. Does committee agree? Committee, please turn to page 36. Health and Social Services, Health and Social Programs, with information on page 37. Questions? Member for Yellowknife North.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I see there's the continued funding for the Wellness and Recovery Center in Yellowknife. This has been in the capital budget a couple years now, but can I just get an update on that project and when we expect construction to start? Thank you.
Thank you. Minister of Health and Social Services.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I'll start and then I'll turn to Perry Heath to fill in some of the details. So a design firm has been contracted to provide a design for the facility, and I think they're moving towards having a draft available to share with the department and the people who are going to be most intimately involved in the Wellness and Recovery Center. The schedule now is for the RFP for construction to go out next year, and I think that the center itself won't be ready until the end of 2023, the beginning of 2024. But if I don't have those right, Mr. Heath will correct me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Heath?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Minister is correct. We're targeting the end of 2023, early 2024 for operationalization of the facility. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Member for Hay River North? Yellowknife North?
Not planning to move to Hay River anytime soon, Madam Chair. I know there's endless debates about day shelters. Can I just get clarification that the site has been selected, the one beside, I'm going to call it beside St. John Ambulance across from True Value? Is that the site that has been selected? Is that a finalized decision? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Minister?
I haven't heard that it's finalized, but we're going to have to finalize it soon if we haven't already, because we have to apply for a permit to the city. So we can't do that on the basis without having a firm location. I'll ask Mr. Heath to confirm where we're at with the site selection.
Thank you. Mr. Heath?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is our intention to submit a development permit application in the upcoming months for the site that the member referenced. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Member for Yellowknife North?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I want to ask, can the Minister speak to work being done to make that process easier? I am afraid that we are likely to lose this vote with the current council, given their track record, and perhaps there's a way to pull some votes. I just would welcome the political insights that's happening to make sure that that application development permit is a little smoother. Thank you.
Thank you. Minister?
Yeah, thank you. There is a plan to engage people and businesses and residents who live in proximity to the site of the new Wellness and Recovery Centre. We are not under the same kind of time crunch we were with the day shelter. We have time to go through the process and to go through an appeal process if necessary. I can't predict what council's going to do with that. I mean, obviously, we will present all the information we have about the centre and what it's for and who will use it. And we'll just have to wait and see what council makes of all of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Member?
Lastly, Madam Chair, I know we have either purchased or rented, or we're using the Tłı chȯ all-season construction as a temporary day shelter, which my understanding is intended to run until this one is complete. Can I just get clarification whether that money is found in the capital budget or the O&M budget, or whether that's coming forward through a sub? Thank you.
Thank you. Minister?
Yeah, thank you. I actually haven't heard which budget this is coming out of, so I will ask Mr. Heath for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Heath?
Merci, Madam Chair. Ayi dani konga hlasi hlati atsila hode. Ayi hola tsaki konga oahi na tsetira si samba wata oatila. Yellowknife North Kutsa Ketesa don. Merci, Madam Chair, merci. Ayi siya kon. Aya you had a body holding rooms we ye. Aya Jean at the new honey quan honey the rauki shadow. Merci, Minister. A body holding room 2020-21. A work honey 2012. ESC Don't get the adin honey don't get corn honey a hood deha honey go she lane le hunted ali a year honey a year honey said okay hood deha conde masi a yet ali see health and social programs okay Mufi go take a test so don't he Johanny take it etsanek esse agent adiagi di agent etsanek di hani dan contrat donne gits adia honi ne am adin contrat go tsoni eye what wo guts dele honte
Minister?
Yeah, thank you,
Minister see biograin ne x-ray machine hane x kunit chi hane to gi hoi di hane machine az ya ko hane wallahi da biomedical equipment evergreening we ye hunt ye what alats da gut hunt hanu ko contact hunt somebody that wants ke hu ya he der raw ke shon le hunt hanu ko contact he hunt arjon ladin hunt monta health center sigits it's on it ali hanu ko what hunt we kin shon hanu one de a department said get keda and yatina ahadi lehunte mufi go zangate so do achinda inkia masi committee page 34 so it's the health and social service support services 3,641,000 committee ha'engi won health and social service health social program Ami sehanik egadaniwo health Hay River Hatlod de South Gutso the ka a ye body holding rooms woods on Kewan die ka the one the aquatlon said aquatlonic holini lene asi kontra hani here jonti hani gets on her geke ni hamasi Hata high seen le ye body holding rooms honey Kontaya Gala Health Center 2012 we kwe holini de a ye hanisi kohani kwa get sia what and do de leads on Fort McPherson say honey don't gile de gi kohani we ke hodi kohani ho hle ha hote e ho no ha jon de ke tle hote it health centers hanisi nizi inhlanizi etlene de hladia tsallale hotene hane kwajo hote body holding hani kwa tak tiak tak fortlier delhi palatak hani high art texia ni khla hote ayi atla ho tla honen de zo ha wala da hote Hay River South Kuzanga Tetsudo. Hey, Madam Chair. I see a Tatlong was a son back a who we are honey Hassan Tiasiga. Fort Yard, it's a chicken that goods on see a joint that wants a who we are honey. Emma say a year that loads a who we has a de Lindsay $600,000 hat loads a who we are honey. Hey River South, Emma say Madam Chair. Hanner Cody da Cassie. The Rawak Edsonle, occasionally, YK North Ho, you want the incare the day shelter, see you want the incare hunter. A day shelter, night shelter, honey, see somebody that song what's on Kehu, we see that a said I can't near the honey, her honey, Kungira, Husheni, the Nizia honey. A department see. Gata de Nezahde, day shelter, night shelter, honey contai, let's on Hanigira, Holini de Nezahde, Massey. Minister Ikego Dawasha, Massey, Madam Chair, D. What I let's a da honey. That's on some bad da, day shelter, honey. Contractors, honey, night shelters, see what lahunde. A dainty sin is in a quant and a honey cord, diani con, Lati Holini, the Nizandis, a quainty hunter, honey co, ye see Lawunguts a da, or hunt and a honey could dear see somebody that not a lot of da, zont at a hunt and a you were also a session, Gawata a ho on the what's on don't geek a hoodie long term care, honey see. Well, that's a da ha gonna da ho on the a year honey see. Lady says in the honey could see what the other question what only lene massy. I may say a chinta a care di somba what a lots of da one goes at the same Hay River South. A chinta a care let a massy. A health and social programs on Gamida a care health and social services. 7,434,000 committee Nihirasale. The health and social services in the goods 38, 39 here's the get there. I say that a canny great slave goods like a tetso don't must see Madam Chair. I say departments here that John Stanton Legacy Building. Do you know that's a hatahanin as what's somebody who we have got in Hawani Health and Social Service like our day. I must see Mr. Ye not this year wala dasi actually in Daihuni the he will find this we're gonna get out there. Haniko a legacy project in the goods in Gika la da the long term care that wallahi will la da Haniko di huset anon delani a dani sanat la hindless at Arjunti won't get ahuni. Great slave because I get that so do. Hey minister see somebody that what's okay who set a legacy building. I that so let's a behind less yash center garage more let's in dahoni. Hane kodi Niziwa let's a dad the sea a session la nisi wiki who's is a hunter let's in dying with knees on. Must see great slave because I get that so do. Madam Chair must see. A year said, what good deeds do as a girata ha the scene left Minister. A daga, well, that's a dahani, so what's a dahote, must say, Madam Chair. Also hani de galagi de hunte hani ko events hani holle hani de 2023 we're gonna get agadi le hunte e yi see somebody get see hunte e asin e yi that holle hein le see hodin le see asin insha hatun zin wala da huni masi masi even society gets a hui li with a good hinsi ye and behind a coins on got on get at a second good hin a ye that's a give us a last sound down go did you watch somebody get seen that somebody get let a honey give a lot that when they I mean the long-term care a good danny one honey.
Madam Chair, isn't at has not committee against it at a year and it it's like it's like one that hand like at Hada Tewala, Egots on a isn't at a new a you and your heart could it said that that some person that was on wiki who yes on it.
Yeah, so
It adds saga nit walla le haniko it at goods hadia nilene. Mr. Elkan must see it at a yisent at 23-24 a yisent at that long houses and I was on wiki who ya got in some kevin day. It at that a yisent at wagat dan ni tsompa a yesent at hon a hasosent a ladiat hon hani ko did at that hani what's a you what's on wiki who yesent at that some percent a hasosent at dino that's on did that it's not a new vixent at 349,000 that inte had så gick get any det had så lite massid elnaf north it at a yesent has sent at 20 million on it at a had so sent at had some area it at a minister sent at health and services isn't a has isn't a that's isn't at some but a hunt and honey co minister sent at a isn't at hunt at a isn't at a year hunt at a say the ongots that isn't at the donuts a hadile. Hit the a yesent the hank and listen hayats at hadik at the you were here on a you sent out the hook what a honey the secret at the honey has sent the hoogie on in the hunt and it at a year sent out the what at a year the hot agont at a hot hot at it and it's on that day we're sent out a year that like it that go here on sunk a da the has sent out the it inta gogani de high sound the a ye legacy building renovation get this and go get in hand is it I stand ten a you will sit at dani had some do again lani de that hair sent out do a you see idea and it's on it dear has said und aha did a ye gig isn't get at on isn't at la gold longots on that longots on said I get had got at and who crack at I gig a light that would do on you'll live north the eke and Madam Chair must say it high senate a year territorial 20 million sent out a year d sent a housing sent out what doesn't donate that's on good sent a yeah and dogs sent a geek a hoodie it so that's on good honey don't work a hoodie honey dead that some bar what's it last one Ye hannisit at indagots at the yegots and I get their honey descent wogan dagot Massi it decent the hanits on the hoots at any lenegoshi kills adagoche ho it then like a good sent done hasn't sent that's on goes of wagons and looking at what DNA de a isn't nursing honey say let's I get the has work isn't like a who get it the honey what has a deed and it's what doesn't dan ge ho e ading ge ho dia ha le ke da ho ye ho on internet de ay da tsalla ge ga ge ho on se so let's di da go he ho on de has so sent the NWT sent a sent elle sent hat di internet so it de hani hwa go tsong ge ho de hani khose wo ke sent ke ho tsa na ho tsa tsa ti ho de it work on hayat here ha must see it since nick in hani kongo tsong de it wanta ye go he ke ho di ho go ko it has sent it has sent it giga sent it the program and giga go sinile it what this it home care and isn't the not isn't it a isn't on tani de con get it the not isn't it it what sent the net trail it the nak egot sent Allah hanis da onda onda wata asan ke dagin woni la e hani ke ga asan sagga huts a dile Madam Chair must say it decent the has a yet at angots sent a yesent Johannesent tage de jesent Johannesent what doesn't ke hos ha hund ha hudi in les programs and hasn't sent on that swa 8 jesent it de go jesent it a hasn't sent jesent 9 to 5 8 no doesn't it then like isn't and Tone the dingy hair on the conge any the ages and kick a dias and gahadini lena a has sent up a year honeyco what sent up the dean sent out the has sent out the conge 8 a year hot gets us a dear rat in that finally sent it on that hair that son limit an idea sent a has sent out some pass and it the sets as a day nursing care it goes a home care it's a day has sent out don't as a day I go here was a hat in a lay and say a ye day have got at a week let's eat the hunt a day must say it hunt hat lot desasint da it decent was at the long term a year then skick a hoodie it instead had lot this and denle it not that head and that ek dins on denle it din on that day it good disont in the hunt a year that lot longer on going there hit at the care the one a has said that like egots sent us say well work a hot con a ye not that decent out the running a hand lenny dead got some wounds at the it the minister it hey river they had niggas and it isn't Well, it's a dehadini lene. Sent out member is on saying this out at the neck. What's out there? Let's at the year. We want husband in decent out and not that day that hair what you was la it member is on it sent out a year. It isn't that din that hair and had some was last that you was lot like it is on there. It day hot out and has a year with this thing got sent long term that's why it's on get a deal honey do a yes and that and has something a year na who get out on get go here on it's on 20 down that din that test and that a yes and that on aha who di in listen that we isn't that no who grab down that hot says in that
And I
it am a sit a yilla and get that and who it decent ye dan ni wik ye that he had from what did it
more support to home care. Is that still the case? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Danny that had that from Allah who didn't listen to again there got some yeah I need not kegots sent out ye had sent had la in le hunt yet humbat sa yes na keda taking won't it de yes in the go it do got a get the lesson ya han ko yes ye humbat sa ye got sent out thick isn't that ke hot lots of da ho it ye the did the ko get ha lesson ya han ho isn't week at a lot of that I go here on net what I did has sent out hope what I go here on hand isn't that a year that got a hoodie I isn't out what that the did that from that here a year game one in the goods sent out hot doesn't leho
Those people who
did don't listen to has sent out a year long-term care is decent work isn't go here on isn't want doesn't home care isn't go here on get there it has isn't got must say that's what this isn't it what this it got since it 2024 2025 okay need there how long got
Started
Nugget alcohol in it it what the second then I don't have Congo on say a year or so wasn't athletes like a dinner. The Mr. T you a good day had in Lena.
Thank you, Mr. Heath.
The Heath.
Madam Chair,
Must see Madam Chair a isn't then a hasn't it decent hasn't then like kissing gig isn't who get like get that in listen. Did de hasn't work wasn't go here on its own. De had has on construction honey you're going to listen that
it is a optimistic schedule.
it had says and what you on that again listen that you get our glad that and had the
to bring up or issue.
isn't won't get a that's a decent has something I didn't they go on isn't I didn't I sent then I dig as something okay yeah why got on I dig as on Congo only you and I get what like down there it isn't and I dig as honey on it like what lot I don't so isn't isn't Nazanede a sing can't go na go get on its on.
Yeah, thank you.
Must say, Madam Chair, a said eight at ain't doesn't commissioner isn't konago ge wahala it grint isn't it white hatlo den hugge on good on sent nicht wallane aisha de has sent the why good on nicht walla nets on de den tomba nizane de
Files and
nicht walla sent has sent that's a glass sent what sent
advertised, some of them
doesn't it's a waha delay. It hasn't sent out a year what doesn't neatly hands it out hasn't sent out go here on its own. A year had seen it's a lenny the you go here or han sent out go here I see what doesn't let on onke who we had nisn't our here yet here on there. Must see had day. Madam Chair, sent what's a done the clinic sent a hasn't it a walla that we get a hoko.
These and
A yadin it's a year then the government sent out a year on Kessats, you get what lab. You get a diet on who it say I want it it done need to send on is there. Haniko. Sen in sen och det tu zak hanya kodwa och han koni denizna det sen den inte hålla inte så och de var sen har så sen work lat dasin donga asanile it as a minister Tłı chło Yatıì.
Minister.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I understand.
I must say that this year, that is where Kohon and Hanako Kwaho Shannon the sea can't at the Chileho. I see Ladinga, Constantin with at Yadile Taco. You were also say, I do want Lahi. Look at the Hay River Health and Social Services Authority gets a hoy lihonte haneko. You will go to it's a caddy lehonte ye hesi. Somebody that wants a kehuya huni yishi work at a thousand it's and guyi go kwani de yeha ayit guyi go kwats a lad de lehoni yishas and work a hot honey de neza. Ida iya jhuti wo ka tsa thadi le hmeta namasi kethe sodo Madam Chair masi ida minister si hatlo de health authority so good deni denezia de din say ayi wo nanigi de si wo ni tle hi getse so bada tlo hi wo tso ke hu bia ni hu di da yi sha zo hu de ni tle de he so go gin la hu te yi az ni tle ku ke hu di ha ta ha tlo da e ke ma si e yi wo si ha dia le ta ma si asi the continuing care on in a pot a hot hunt a won't go there with a wha got don't get hood dear honey's home support honey good so hot a go honey do not like this at I must see gets in home a unless they don't get day go on done zinc a get day hot a honey call de hota ul hat hook the DC minister wehela da wetsa hota I what should on a dega like de hanise ta gets in the dark what I get de had the left with a siala what in dai honey de gi agreement that's in it's in one go he go ki na ke huzun la ne go ga ho hota go on da se da ola hota gets a palatak saxi contado na get desi enuvits on taget that I call na get dagi wule honte contaki na dike zunga contake the dani de zohani I could say get de honte lots on kesirani de yet Ayat adani adlani de nezahoni community corporation hani hi ajuhut ile wala tsada hadi le hunte ay committee si hani goshini de woga tsada di le hunte Italy minister si wa good si Ola hatuk palatak aya de hwella di le honi Masi minister Madam Chair hata masi get so don't say that see he a con when the cake it's a day left with somebody just like he a con he other good con what's in da und da sie geht jetzt de und da de din se da con tai let's or target the hagi wulle und da con target this or the con ta na get the hagi wu Wickets a jean with a hag good dinet alley. Aid alley gig contasi that got a yajan with a wogan wogats in that with a aid a d on tahani con okay giuna need de with a indi that okay le sonic was a key that indi hookey NWT Housing Corporation la ho onle hote ontahane khoya hohle 9plex hohle it's on guyi thanida bohait kohani ho on azungit ati hote kontane tlose da nano da dinda te gits oleni de eyehani da hani hani da shower he dekenat at sehanit indi guyats a deha hani si ginwo it's only any tosits a gon as hagon as yishi azon ramp la nisit a holini de ginwo hute it a housing corporation si Gihe adani yani concept lani de nezajo hote wakats a trahote don ondaya linsia da contana dead agi a contagi ke hodini de nezia ke dise giga hatsala ha se wetsa za hontanet ali hani na wasajo hote wadana tsa ta hote masi nina pogotsa ke tesodo he minister na kesa on Indonesia Ik het Thailand nisi na ke nizi hote hane ko yesi so on da se da konta let's atage dagi wuni le go on da si go wata a hote go Yatıì ge on da hane go ni na get da hagets in hote konta let's on se tage de tla hone de nezini le na ki wogon haisi minister se da nezin we la da hote na da le masi we hundi masi Nana pogoza gata sodo masi di camle good so mufi good da hote yitla hone de camle good on gata sodo disi ayun good da se da wunda ekente hwa good on se da COVID witla home Asilon had good job. Minister he hadi home care tatsin wo hote go on da hani adanigi gets a diahi a ye what's a go again da ha gets in hunet a lay na was cigarawat a hote a ye his in da whagots as in daninizingi gets a diahani na was cigarawat a hote domo daki as in kungi wo honte wait in sigahina get the hasigi wo honte ayet a lady say ayet adi nuna pose ne kontra gagun wala na get de gui ne konton de kontra na get de hagin wo ayet ala akonda ni gira onda kon gira ho lini de sigin wo te ayet yi hani set a housing corporation wo good di hani de get la si on dai case te minister yi hani hi multi-generational housing wika latsa dani lena hane ko guhingo la sia da yi kongo du na de sia da ho chine zegi hoi di ha tsin wo da hani ke latsi de ayit ali on that a si ho chine zingu ke ho di tsin wo na wo si gi ke la da ho ta yi shi yi ke ha ya tia di le tako Mr. Eith and Madam Chair a ye hani seta di wiki let's a dalle hode cam lego get so don Madam Chair masi a ye hat asamba what a let's a down gets a deck here could a hat a deal le home care policy sia jumats in dani de nezia home care workers yakin linsi the DC han a dani a lagi desi konton keda a case in a haneko health and social services as a ye hani housing for seniors hani ke lagi de honini housing corporation ki he hani de nuna posida di ayi unda e ka this e you het elani da e ka sin hote masi kawde he hata haisin le e $5 million hat sonne tin un hote dia ni ko hle gani de ko hle ekiye bohait ekon goto ke na itse kon hani hajo etleke hola tle hat di hode da di you also said that hani he a konra ka de tin lini lena hani ko ki he relati de honte kontra se dona de kontra na get de ha get in honta gits at a di honte masi mon fi go tan get so don ha masi e khwatsa on tagi ke ho di tsong ke honte di si go hi go tso ho di honte thin chon ne ke hi we create hi e ya questioners a khwala da honte e yet ali di hagot enet ali a si long-term care program a Miss Green hata Minister Green you had di honte we create hi si ada a year a conquats on dyke a head DC we create si healthcare kohani na dik ezongo attack kohani si a con nurse a conguina derasi gamet hani with some de derasi at a healthcare center a year honey e kontrahane community government we create it's on kongu yi hane ho oni de ne zin ho dai dun e kontraho on ho te e yi hane a chin de on wo ka ho tranin de ne zin ho te we create si don ha yi da gin won si on da hane de kontrat sa din so kontrat a ge da gin won le dali di ra si nurse hane hi a kon a la da da ho te we create it's a dear health center so a kon la da ha ho te na no khutz on sia dani a yi wo la tsa da hane ni tlesna dan ho chile Haneko yi set a nit leik as honey. We created a nigila da set a yik as jonte. Mr. Eath? Madam Chair, must see. We created see. Contana chala honte. A yi se contana chala ganai ta honte. 250 don't have sona de honte. A yi set a nizi at cleon a yi consi. A da insla con wogu giraho shani lene. Insla nizi gun honte. Masi Mr. Eath, mufi goza getesodo. He, a yi set a don't have son 250 honte. A had dila hon. Mr. Heater Rauk ain't going there. A year 250 had son la hun le haneko. Hein chola hun de Rauk esson le haisi. Mo figures and get it so don. On da contase da agent containcho sigik ezonte. Work pretty. Inhle sad dance on what at a concern get a hunte. Did DC hataki what show at the get dalani hotel gets on in alelani hotel a question what a nurse gun te hagidi hotel sigin na hotel haniko program services net go hani goshini de gi wohte healthcare system tsonke that in idik ezona wo gits a ditsonke what a he kontrase donne lagi gits a da hote yi hese kontrase nurse gi li halake ho get honi de ne zia hote e yi hese da a yi so a high sense hote a yi da ne zia hote what a he asinet shakho le hani hi goshini de ne zia hote yazon wi de ke tleni de ne zia.
They did a study.
Dat no det hasun sit no det dat kont eta kiche ho ohani ase night hani da kasu hadla masit et wogun sit adega wok esunle et egisit dane egisit dane ke hokot egisit det woga geta et de Mr. Heath he's a good dad dile Mr. Heath. Masi Madam Chair, Ada Agisint, Bureau, Agisint, that sort that Adlawak as last giche, Agisint, Nano Husint, Hasant, Hasant, Hawk, what at the dig, Gehoga, Agisint, Agisint, Decent, it go hinset sen like who tat any de a ye dagon at a ho honey work a hot ha kick a hot ha honey the egg kega a ye need the work a hot on there it the on the egg care it decent the 38 million. It hustle sent out 38,538,000. A sent out it got sent it dead at the 800 2022 the a sent 49,613,000 a year. It sent it a sent the wogungus in the adzahon it did the committee must say a sent a has sent the did
Committee, we will now consider the department.
It de hon taga de gigan sent sent de son go get sent that son go get there hon taga de la get de don yagele.
Minister, please introduce your witness.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On my right is Deputy Minister Aurora Grew. Thank you.
Sorry, what was her last name?
Want me to do it again? Deputy Minister Laura Grew.
Welcome. The committee has agreed to forego general comments. Is the committee agreed to proceed to the detail in the table document? Thank you. Committee, the Department of Municipal and Community Affairs begins on page 64. We'll defer the departmental totals and review the estimates by activity beginning on
No that at how taga digging it like Congo on sent us Tonda Dean Tonda Sin La I got on at Honda at Ha. It the questions it husband said it's like when no a husband gets on in the Ha day you go see. Yes, the Hugo Young Life North. Must see Mr. Speaker. It Maka, I sent that, and we see. I sent that, so it did. I sent out, hustle sent out 200.5 million. A year on top of this, a year in this, had some dick it, 11. It decent hasn't a got policy the isn't that front ye gigs at isn't good had the got 1090 it young life north got 1090 it isn't the hasn't isn't a hustle that trans 29 million had sent I capital projects in what I haven't any minister Madam Chair it decent has sent NWT I sent that you would give on a go here on it must see Madam Chair must see Minister Young Life North must say, is it did has sent the wounds at the hand go here or it hunt I haven't at on its own a isn't 5 million a yet at go here ho honey co decent a isn't then a isn't a year then like a Hot said that got at go here on isn't hot I had some body in there.
Thank you.
Deputy Minister Younger there. Must say, Madam Chair, decent isn't has yet 20 million had some pockets or sent some person and again in the must see Madam Chair. It got sent it that isn't hasn't sent hasn't what sent that isn't hasn't sent some part federal government's not game then isn't hasn't sent at some part like get honey lena okay how did internet so Jihad Hassan Kehoko as a minister go sent some wasn't no it's a let's run that I go minister. It the isn't hasn't sent WT sent hasn't sent I let's eat there you walk it thought I got at go here how would internet so on Yellowknife North. It it hazon and what the new hurani doesn't hazon hunt ayet onke hayat need ayet hazon doesn't was and that's yes gunets had it administer assistant ayed ladat at in wounds at hunt I ank at go here it so has Canada what tego goods sent sent dena kesent gihe dena kesent has sent kesent assistant had di hunt ene it it hunt ni gik la get rasent hunt det dijo you wasn't like a hope what I go here how when it's on minister must say it hanig isn't it has sent out don't sent out somebody gets a listen it did isn't isn't it hasn't it don't it gets a big hood asking le gets on she had isn't arena sent hunt hagonte it yes it has sent the sent the news sent yet and has sent the new which isn't like a whole when it's that it den ni atlet ke rund hit den nak egot sent go here on we ke hope what I got doesn't go here on this on Yellowknife North Madam Chair it has sent out a year on sent out Hazon ke hope what I go here on its on we sent a lot at that it agenda blue tea sent has sent out the don't sent out the drunk a get hini lene it assistant ha hot in it's at gender blue tea a sent out hot ke hope what on ke when it's on a year has sent out the decent go here, the GNWT sent a sent minister sent assistant a sent go to the house sent a sent it lot so good sent out some boy go shenets on what I sent at a sent has a geek like it done it's on. It sånt melle maka it it dan ya yeti sent the sent the sent the ayiki the how you sent a has a hope or the ayiki it the sent dan ya it has sent a has sent the hagon gets it the sent it did you have dig here lots at the house sent one that sent Yellowknife North it a year sent a house sent a year sent a year on sent it the go book home it has sent it I again one that near it go here it I ye down it
Staff.
Kontra yegi woni de gicha latsanda harwits at hote. Di hani wolegets a dita hani yati kiata aha di hote. Hani ko a question gi he goods a dozut aha hote. A NWTAC gicha latsada hote. Masi. Yellowknife North goods on get that so don't ha Madam Chair. Ni egalada here da winnie dia wets hote contrasi wogo John so back ho get a back ho go heni de Italy adani sombadani wetala tseda hania juhuti latia dahoni. Hala de yi konta yi hotle waga hani so go somba wetala tseda hi latia ati hun edani huni. He emasi Mr. Deputy Minister ta yi ke good da wala masi. He Madam Chair masi. Eyi kete sodo adisi onta ekwadi hote. Eyi dadi sumbawet alatsada community government dedi hani getsi hote. Hani ko eyi dani wat alatsada hani de do ayi ge kewa gala ni alatsada hote sunat ale ketsabe kwa hogi wuni de ya je huti nai ta hote he was he somebody that like who we are honi e she has a huti wa da hote adani etleni de he was somebody that we ke hudi si ga what somebody that like who we are honi he she has huti wa da hote e hutante somebody that we ke who we are honi what's da honi e she has huti wa da hote e da what Asia Jean go here latiat in what go to on hut hunt somebody that what a lot of that latiat in what a Yasia what in that eat her department hunt Asia not eat her what the DC I that what I like that gets on Sia what he night what a Hanukkah somebody ta would create here what in it let's say in what they must say. Great slave goes on get test so don't. Hey, must see Madam Chair. See he and a $2.5 million on say good la who on adla le hudi hote Italy san is le la ni hote hane ko hane hu a yi somba hat son contact de gi somba what hagi ohi a yi somba si da contact on aja honi a yi si da zoni like get di hani ga si da contact de gi ga si somba da tlon gi za ja it's on contact on somba da tlon gi za ja honi Minister, e somba si hajon hunti somba kontat aja hote. Great slave kutsakitet so domasi Madam Chair. He enezi hote. E da what et class was somba that look who we say yajanai tani de inta atlatlon hoots ani de what alatsa hani what's a somba tlon ke who we are there who do it adani hani that tlon somba what's a ke who we are honi who did it dani gita honi masi Deputy Minister ta ke go daddy le he Deputy Minister he masi Madam Chair 29 million dike tlesi in DC 28 million hote le ya za into aja hote hani ko ayi go he asi ye she hani ho do o asi itala nini de e hutant it hani lene Aida dani aida tlon gala da ha si ya jo huti somba ita community government hani da gala gi de hote asin gi hene tlon go agut ini de klaho ka gon klaho di tiat ini de do hi gine get hani de se ya hani se ya jo huti ita hote ya ita hani somba ya zade ati hote masi Great slave goes on get so don't Madam Chair. When you do what I eat in DC, Hana Quintle Hut Hunt at Aki Gihi Assiladiat in Ilene, Assi Nichawet Lenilene, Edali Assi Honey de Quaho Assin Nichawet Lenny de Adai Tisia Jahut Iladiat in the Edali Contada Nigi, a lot that honey. Hana gudi atlatlon ho gotson hi asi hot lela ni hot na dali e yiwu na ni hut ai sin hoda masi government si Daniela gedda hi de dimot o kya khot ha se da de somba yai sin hoda gas tax hani si somba gotso si federal government si di hani program go klingo get dini de si si somba at in hoten hani kodi asina chakot hani ga somba hani to wala huti hulin la ni lena tali ki in khazon la ni hani ga somba wala gidi ta chi le hote tali wat a hi ta jo gni tlech a hi si wo hudi hote ta Deputy Minister, tata oike go daddy le hote. Madam Chair, kotaka dehani community government si etlekhe lagi de hote si lai hu ha what's si aida tlongi kyala da aida tlongi konta ho hle hani a jon wo etlekhe la da hote. Aida what's his somebada tlongi hu ya honi ya jon huti gi tra hote. Ayet di hai tia honi gets a dida at din si a si de tila na get dia di le hani si a jon hunt wogon gi he gots a du hunde. Aye he si da kontrahi kontrasi hutine zele a get di hunde on kya asi hani gejon hani asi gejon hani dun si what a he let's a get di hunde. Och jag gick ho asi det chat I hote community government ho asi mota det chat in the year si on kya som pata on kya la hote hani sia gote hote as community government si hani ta higi kya la tsada hote mase Deputy Minister Great Slave goes on get sodo Madam Chair masi Deputy Minister said that Nizi Kehayanti Hote Hanuko di Wugundai Kasi Ayi Wugun Lake goods are do hunte si federal some baget honey de get take ha at a get a cat it won't and what a lot of da si Hanuko kontaka de si de DC don't hear needless in the Nezia honey masi Minister Wike Gwinda and Kontagi here a lot of the federal government on Sabawala Hudila Nini de Kontaya Galasagits at a D hunter at the DC Ayi da Gelagin would see Gigasagusets Laha what's at Zahunter a year honey ho hunter as a hunter a lot of da what's at Zah let's at a diasi what's at Zahunter hani na wo si what we ka la tsa danin de tsa di ho te federal government so ba ke tla ke di la ni de we ke tsa joni de a ko ti si ta ko ta ya go la se a sen di ha de so ba kha da ko ni ke tsa di da ha ni ke he go tsa do ho te yi so ke he si ni tla se tsa la de ni de si ha tsa la ha si we tsa tsa ho te yi do ne se ha ni ko ta ke he la tsa da ha we tsa ho te na ma se Asindi tsoke amida ekhani wo kontaka de ra
Member for Frame Lake?
frame lake was on get so do he motion Hotanatsit it's idia the hote. Motion quest she hotanatsit it's a d. I mean now it's a di. I mean lenny motion holy hotana hunte how this ya.
Report of Committee of the Whole. May I please have the report member for Nivik Twin Lakes?
Anuvik Twin Lake, Mr. Speaker, 437-19 brackets 2 Wogunguts indet adid zanganats at ahonte Italy, Mr. Speaker, Committee of the Whole would last what I want at inte. Amit at ID. Satik egozo. Ami now it's a ID. Ami Leniwo. Motion Holy. Tides on our need like AT. Madam Clerk in Dides and Danitlis and Yahindy.
Tłı chło Yatıì indig gaude dawat inke inlegots on nagode haton goga gekwe giji hat edi asi wek edzon at ehi gaude da gats eke nitle ta da et eke indi nitle ta da et ike inlegots on nagogede Commissioner Yatıì ke hayat eti Goinji asit eke nawode wegon ginda wegodi standing aids on special committees on amigode what's on donate ala nitle girada ya negele nawo wek edzon ra Yatıì nit a aqueflon nawo nitle wek edzon ra hats edi nawo hosle aqueflon nawo nitle wek Yatıì nak so nawo nitle wek Yatıì nawot ala weron segeti ra ho'o nitle nano datson tai nano datson di nano datson suto tano datson isle tano datson nake tano datson tai tano datson eketai deketle di Queno Datson Tano Datson Sundi, Di Queno Datson Tano Datson Ekedi, Di Queno Datson Tano Datson Sunton, Di Queno Datson Dano Datson Eketano Datson Eketai, Edani Segadi, Weron Hagedi, Tides on Nawo Nitle Wek Eati, Indaizen Edani Segedi Ha Wek Eati.
Die Massi, Edaizen November 29th, Natlitz and Diha.